On the last pod, I described the semi-final between England and the Dutch as the most anticipated contest between the new two nations since the Glorious Revolution. Unlike then, it was the English who were victorious yesterday. Xavi Simon's early screamer counted out by a Harry Kane penalty, the former Spurs man scoring the spot kick with the same foot that was so violently assaulted by Denzel Dumfries. Devon's, and definitely not just Exeter's, Ollie Watkins, left it late for England again, who go on for one last dance with the Spanish Armada on Sunday. This is the Green and White podcast brought to you as ever by Argyle Life. Joining me, Stan George, is first of all Finn.
Hi mate, all right.
I'm not bad, thank you. And also joining us from Dortmund at the game yesterday is Adam. How are you, Adam?
Yeah, very well. Just about recovering. I'll show you just how well I'm recovering. Like, this is very much next to me, so I'm, engaging in the local culture. Yeah, as you can see, very well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and for audio listeners, Adam was just holding up a pint of orange squash to the camera. Anyway, Adam, it's good to have you here because Sam, unfortunately, couldn't be bothered to join us on his holidays. It's good to see we've got
it's
one.
Just standards, isn't it? It's just standards. Some of us can set them, some of us can't. And I would give the world to be able to see both of you again. And here we are. So, the viewers haven't got Sam. And frankly, the viewers have got an insight into just how Sam operates in Argyle Life. It's a shame, but they had to find out somehow.
Yeah, it's a shambles, really. But it's nice to see that we've got full commitment from Adam and Finn as well, even though... Well, are you joining us from enemy lands as well? You in Cardiff?
I got back today, actually, so that's okay.
Oh, okay. It's nice to see. So spending your time in England before Sunday, which is good.
Yeah.
As always, like, comment, subscribe. Keep your comments rolling in. We'll do our best to react to them, have a little conversation, as we always do. So, yeah, YouTube is the best because you can get a longer comment in. So if you're in doubt what platform to use, YouTube's always good.
I'd just like to quickly say I'm not wearing an Argentina shirt for a jinx on England, but I did say in a previous pod that I'd wear some of my more exotic football shirts or try and make an effort to.
Fair play. It's a nice shirt. And
excuses go, it's a good one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm kind
maybe
of just impartial to a good football shirt, no matter who it is, to be honest.
Yeah, no, fair play. Maybe we should have a little chat about the Copa America final later on. Anyway, let's get on to the pressing matter of England against the Netherlands yesterday. England once again lining up at the start of the game in the same three at the back formation that they did in the previous game against Switzerland. Not a great start. Xavi Simon's from about 20 yards away with that blockbuster of a goal. But it was quickly replied to with Harry Kane's penalty. Now, there's been a bit of a debate about this, and particularly, I think, in light of the referee, Felix Weyer, who Jude Bellingham criticised for being convicted of match fixing in 2005. I'm not saying that anything as nefarious as that was going on last night, but did you think that was a penalty?
I'll let Adam go because he was in the stadium. So.
Well, yeah, you say that. I didn't see much replays either. I mean, from my perspective, no. I think it's one of those where you hear a lot of the classic cliche, oh, you've seen them given. I think this is very much one of those where you've seen them not given, in the sense that, can you make an argument for this being a foul? Yeah, you can. Would it have been a foul elsewhere on the pitch? Possibly it would have done. But for that to be a VAR overturn was, let's call it a surprise. It's not something that I think VAR was designed to get involved with, nor do I think it should be something that it gets involved with, as much as it's benefited us. And yeah, it was a very strange one in the end. The amount of times that we've seen players get shots off and be to be honest, taken out in even stranger and even more violent circumstances than we saw yesterday, and not get the decision for it, is a lot more. But I guess you take it. I mean, as the comment that's just on the screen says there, we've had in '93 we had that go against us with Koeman. We've had a fair few decisions go against us since then, so maybe we're due one in our favour.
Maybe Graham Taylor was smiling down on.
He must have been. He really must have been. And do I not like that? But I kind of feel it's one of those where if the referee gives it as a foul, there's not nearly as much argument. We're in a situation where a VAR has kind of, and I know it's been used a lot, but it's kind of re-refereed the game to give that as a penalty. And I don't think that's what VAR has been brought in for. That being said, we take it, and I think we'll have more discussion about the penalty, no doubt. I don't think it should take away from the fact that we were very much the better team in that first half, and going in level flattered them rather than us. So you've got to. I'll take my example of being in Dortmund here, coming out from the local metro station. There was a Dutch fan that came up to me and said, "Did you honestly think you were worthy of the win?" I said, "Well, I didn't think it was a penalty, but I did absolutely think we were the better side." And I think that's something that we can't really lose in the reflection of it. Yeah, I don't like seeing penalties being given for that, but I don't think it flattered us all the same. So maybe it evened itself out. And yeah, again, as just to reiterate what the comments are saying there about the decisions that have gone against us in the past, it's nice to have one go for us for a change.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And Marcus also goes on to say that anywhere else on the pitch that would have been a free kick.
Yeah.
I can see it. My personal view on it was, I think it was quite innocuous. I think without VAR, that probably wouldn't have been given. And I think I don't want to get too much into a debate about VAR, particularly as I'm not neutral on the issue, to be honest. But I think that decision is kind of why I don't like VAR generally. I just think if you slow everything down and put it in, watch it all over again in slow motion, it looks completely different to what it was in real time. And in real time, I thought it was quite an innocuous collision. Finn, what did you think of the penalty? Do you agree with, I guess, Adam and me that it was a bit soft, but you take it anyway?
Yeah, I kind of go sort of in between what you and Adam and Marcus is saying in the comments, that anywhere else on the pitch that I've been given. However, I don't think it's a penalty. In my opinion, put it this way, I don't think it's as outrageous. I understand why the Dutch would feel absolutely agree that that's been given. But I can see a world in how you think as a referee that could be a penalty. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I'm not saying it's the most outrageous decision I've ever seen, and far from it, So I think, without VAR, you're right, it probably wouldn't have been given. However, I can see why. If I was the referee, I would side with Dumfries and say that he's not obstructed Kane taking the shot. If it was a fact of he's actually stopped Kane from getting his shot away illegally and fouled him, but Kane's already taken the shot. So that's why mostly I don't think it's a penalty. There's a definite foot-on-foot collision, but it's very much 50-50 and not enough to be a foul in the box. However, like Marcus said in the comments, it probably would be on the halfway line. So, it's very much up for interpretation. So I don't think it's as outrageous. And yes, there's this, story about this referee having... match fixed when he was refereeing amateur games about 20 years ago.
It was in 2005, yes. So.
Yeah, but even aside from that, I don't even see... I mean, that's just bitter Dutch fans, basically, or bitter fans that are not wanting England to win, because...
Or bitter Jude Bellingham when he was playing for Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, or Jude Bellingham, of course. But, I don't see how you can look at that and think that that's, the worst decision you've ever seen. I can see it many worlds in where that what in that's given.
Do you also agree
Yeah.
that it
Sorry,
was? No, sorry, go on.
I was just saying I agree with that, and I feel like some of the discussion around it has been a bit extreme in the sense that it's the worst decision that's ever been made at Euros or something like that. Yeah, it's not that. The questions of what else is he supposed to do? Well, one of the things is win the ball. Like, don't give away a foul. That's one thing that he could do to not give away a penalty.
Yeah, he literally divert it for a corner instead of taking Kane.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do in a game of football. I've been on record in the last 5 minutes saying I don't think it's a penalty. It's not an egregious decision, and I think the general consensus, I may be wrong, is that it's one of those where you can see why it's a foul, but you don't think VAR should be involved in it, or you don't think VAR should exist to be involved in that sort of decision, because I certainly don't. And maybe I'm projecting my view to the world. But it's a lucky decision, and it's a favourable decision. But it's not. Yeah, it's not the most egregious decision we've ever seen at a major tournament. I think Schumacher and Battiston would have a word about that. So, yeah, it's one you take. Obviously, I mean, I'd be very disappointed if we went out of the tournament to such a decision, such an outcome. But it is what it is. You take it, and it's not the worst decision we've ever seen.
No, and I think sort of maybe social media has a tendency to react to stuff in the most sort of over the top way at any moment. But we did mention, didn't we, that England were the better side in that first half, and it's easy to kind of focus on the penalty and think maybe it was soft. But England did have most of the play, most of the possession, and most of the chances during that first half. I certainly think we'd all agree. Certainly everyone I've spoken to has said that. At the start of the second half, there was another tactical switch, changing to the 4 at the back system that we played through most of the tournament before the Switzerland game. And there did seem to be a bit of a change of approach as well. Sort of getting back into those bad old habits, really. Quite defensive, quite slow moving the ball. What did you sort of make of that period, sort of just after half time?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just like to quickly clear up. I have not got Maradona on the back of the shirt. Don't worry about that. It's just a plain old Argentina away top from the World Cup because I like the design. But I think we can be in danger of viewing the game very differently because Watkins scored that last minute goal. And I think, like Adam said, we're very, I think, unlucky not to go into the break in ahead because the Dutch didn't have anything in that first half apart from that Siemens shot, really. It was all us after that. And Phil Foden, by the way, he's been criticised and rightly so as a
by us a lot of the time.
Yeah, by us a lot of the time. But yesterday, you saw absolutely. I thought he was phenomenal in that first half. Him and Mainu in particular, just amazing. Like they're you can tell that they got some sort of. They're both from Stockport, so maybe there's something in that connection. I don't know. But yeah. So, but no, I think I was getting quite frustrated before. Watkins and Palmer came on for the last 10 minutes because I sort of very similar pattern to the Switzerland game, which is there was about 20 minutes of kind of nothingness at the start of the half from either side, just trying to feel their way into the game, not make too many mistakes. And then they started to come on to us and it was like, oh, okay, they're not creating a lot, but they're going to, it feels like the momentum is coming forward with them and we're going to,
Yeah, I would just like to point out for audio listeners that Adam just spilt a little bit of his pint down himself.
Yeah, that's interesting because I thought the audio listeners were going to avoid that. So that's a shame for all concerned. But never mind.
Sorry, I had to grass you up. Anyway, Finn, continue.
But yeah, I just thought it was a very similar pattern to and Southgate again will say he made decisions at the right time and it was again justified, and sure the substitutions were the right substitutions. I'm probably skipping over a point here, but I certainly wasn't expecting Watkins to be the one to come on, so it was quite nice to see that, and then quite nice to see him for once, Southgate, actually identify a possible weakness in the Dutch defence to use that substitution. You know, he could have quite easily thrown Tony on again, who, by the way, himself is no slouch. He's quite quick himself, but you know, Watkins is more of that definite like running behind. You get down the side of the defender, striker. But yeah, I just felt, I don't know, the second half, I don't know why we changed formation. I mean, I know there was Southgate mentioned after the game that there were ongoing tactical changes in the game, and it's probably a lot easier to see that when you're actually watching it. And I don't know what Adam thinks on that, but I think, like in general, like yes, the Dutch did tighten up themselves. You know, credit to Coman for that, but as much as like Luke Shaw coming on had a positive impact down our left-hand side, apart from that, I've said all tournament, I don't really think the 4-2-3-1 system that we're currently playing suits us. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just at this point. I'm just glad. Like we deserved to win yesterday on the balance of play, I think, and we're in the final. And you know, we've said. I think I said a couple of weeks ago, maybe after the Slovakia game, you know, 2 more games and we're in the 2 more games we're in the semi-final. You know, if we win the next game, we're in the semi-final, and it's about moments. And we keep having these moments, and that's what's encouraging me more than anything else. Is we have a great resilience, even if we don't play that well.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think that's probably quite a good point. That obviously a lot of these games, last minute winner against Slovakia, last minute winner here, and a penalty shootout against Switzerland, does kind of show that England do have a lot of resilience about them. Adam, the man with better dribbling than Trippier, according to Renzuk C97 on YouTube. So one thing that the same users also said is that maybe that lull it's sort of easy, I think, to maybe identify England as the sort of architects of their own downfall a lot. But Wout Weghorst came on for the Netherlands at half time and they began to play more direct into the 6'6" striker. Do you think that played a role in it, or do you think it was just England maybe taking their foot off the gas and getting a little bit too comfortable?
It's, as ever, probably both answers are true. It's a sense of, I do think it would have taken us a moment to adapt. I mean, the fact that they had to take off Memphis to play in the first half and didn't bring Weghorst on at that point, but then did bring him on at half time, probably took us a little bit by surprise. And yeah, I can understand why it would take a little while to adapt and understand how the style of play would have been after that. What I would also say is that when that happens, most teams don't then take half an hour to adapt. So it's kind of one of those where, fair enough, they've made a change and we have to look at what we do to it. But at the same time, we've also made a change at halftime. We've brought Luke Shaw on to give ourselves another instrument to our attack and not used it for a little while and until we got later on. So it's a little bit of both. I agree with Finn in the sense that it felt a lot like the Switzerland game, in a sense that we played very well in the first half, as generally we did against Switzerland. I mean, if you take the penalty out of the equation, you look at XG and it's probably very similar to how we did in the first half in Switzerland, to be honest. It's not the be-all and end-all, because in this game we've had one cleared off the line and hit the post in the first half, which we didn't do against Switzerland. But coming into the second half, it did have that feeling of it's same old. We're back to the situation where we don't look in control of the game as we should be, and that, generally speaking, was probably the only disappointment that we had, possibly aside from the opening goal. It was the fact that it took us so long to adapt. It took us so long to get back into the game from the second half, and I suppose it's not a bad thing in its own right, because what it means is we've played really well in the first half. And if the disappointment is we've not reached the same levels, it kind of puts into perspective what a good performance it was before the halftime whistle went. So we've got to keep that in mind. But yeah, generally speaking, in the second half, before we made those changes, that was a disappointing period of the game for me, because it felt like, had we continued to play to our level and had we adapted to the Dutch tactics quicker than we did, that would have given us the opportunity to really hone in on our advantage straight away in the second half. Because if we've won the game, I want to make clear that that's the only negative we have, and we've got a lot of positives to discuss. But if we were able to adapt to those tactics quickly, and we were able to reach the levels in the second half that we did in the first half, we'd probably won it a lot quicker. So that's it's something to think about. I think going into the next game is how we look to come out in the second half, and what must be said at halftime, and then how we adapt to those tactics. Because yesterday, in a much better performance, it was the only thing really that I could look at and go, yeah, that's not great. We have dropped off here. So yeah, something to think about. And as ever, it's always nicer to think about this when you've won than when you've lost and you're kind of conducting a post-mortem on where it went wrong. So it's not all bad.
I don't think we can afford, we'll probably, obviously Spain will have periods of dominance in the final because they're a very good side. But the thing is, with the Dutch midfield last night, I didn't think it had any real quality in it. I thought that for the whole tournament, to be honest. It's been the weakest area of their side.
I think they've had quite a lot of injuries. So
they're missing Frankie de Jong
and Coop Miners from Atalanta, both been injured, who probably would have started for them at the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. But the players that they had on the pitch obviously didn't impress me that much, and like I said, I haven't that much for the whole tournament. But I feel like we can't really afford to have just half an hour like we have in the Switzerland and the Netherlands game, where we just let them sort of have loads of the ball, because and when I say let them have the ball, there wasn't much of a press again. It was just very much sit in our shape and sort of let them dictate the play a bit, which is fine if you're very comfortable. But I'm looking at they got Fabian Ruiz and Rodri, and we know those players can open you up. It's like you've not got any pockets of space at all. So I think we've got to try and do something about that if we can.
Certainly, we'll get on to talking about Spain and their excellent midfield a little bit later on. But adapt we did eventually. I don't think anyone really thought that Ollie Watkins was the right man to come on, but he came on and scored a quite brilliant winning goal from a very tight angle. Devon's Ollie Watkins. I won't say Exeter's Ollie Watkins. I was reading in The Guardian, Jonathan Wilson had an article basically saying that this is kind of the antithesis of Southgate in many ways. Has the reputation as being a very cautious manager, but actually made quite a daring sub. So are we maybe being a little bit harsh to Southgate when we describe him as quite cautious? Because really, that Watkins substitution was out of left field and it paid off, obviously.
It did. I don't necessarily think it's been harsh up to this point, because not making substitutions at halftime against Slovakia was insanity, quite frankly.
I know that Southgate said that it's because, one reason he's given is because he doesn't want to show his hand too early. But
yeah, it sounds like an excuse to me, honestly. But yesterday, I spent a lot of weeks criticising Southgate. Yesterday, he deserves full credit. I think it was a situation with Kane and with the striker. I was thinking it's time to do something, and that something was to bring on Ivan Toney. He didn't see it that way, and he brought on Ollie Watkins, and well, you see the result. He absolutely came on and changed the game and gave us that key moment. And there was a time in my life where I thought Ollie Watkins was put on this earth just to bring me unhappiness. So the fact that we've come out of this side and he's given us one of the sporting moments of the year is quite something. And yeah, it's a lot of credit to Southgate. I think, as I've mentioned just now, we've given him a lot of criticism in the last few weeks, and I don't think it's been unwarranted, quite frankly. I think I've mentioned Slovakia, a lot of what he's done, a lot of the way he set his team up, and a lot of the way that he's not adapted to those changes has been to our detriment. And I mentioned on the last podcast that getting to the semi-finals was kind of almost felt like in spite of the manager rather than because of. But as much as we're willing to criticise, I'm more than willing to again sit here and say, yeah, he delivered yesterday. He made the change that not a lot of people would have done. He put a player on there who completely changed the game, and hey, he got us a last minute winner in a semi final, which does not happen every day. So it's hats off. I've said it's not the change I'd have made. It's not the change that I was thinking of, but the change I'd have made might not have had the same effect that the one that was made. And the one that was made is something that's going to live with us for many, many years. So, again, for all the criticism that I've had, I don't think, to go back to the initial question, that it's unwarranted to say that Southgate's been cautious. He absolutely has been. He's been too cautious in many aspects for his own good and for our own good. But that was not the case yesterday. He made the perfect substitution at just about the right time and got us the result. So, as I say, hats off.
Indeed. I suppose that's why he's getting paid to manage England and we're not. Finn, what do you make of whether Southgate has sort of ditched his cautious reputation with that daring substitution of Ollie Watkins?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I just would like to say how amazing that felt that somebody from Devon scored the winner, because it's not we're all from England here, but I feel like most people first off are kind of patriotic about the place that they're from, as well as in an England, the country, or you come together as that's the beautiful thing about international football. All parts of the country come together to support the team, but then when you at a club, you're solely thinking about the place that you're from or the county you're from, more loosely. And it's been very rare, I think, that this part of the country has been represented in an England shirt. So for him to score one of the most important, for a person from Devon to score one of the most important goals in England's history, was quite a nice moment. But yeah, I don't know if I wouldn't say Southgate has ditched the cautiousness, because we were just talking literally 5 minutes ago about how up until that point the second half was quite poor and gone back to sort of the stale pattern of most of the tournament. But I do think it was a very bold decision, and full credit to him for that, because we'll talk about Harry Kane in a minute, but I mean, he just continues to really do my head in at the moment. But if you look at it one way, 1-1 with 10 minutes to go, we really don't want to go to extra time. One, because that would be 3 extra times in a row. We'd have had one less day than Spain to prepare for it anyway. So I think, yeah, it was imperative that we kind of went for it in those 10 minutes, and he did. But having said that, if he had brought Foden and Kane off, and then it had gone to extra time and we had lost, can you imagine the outrage there would have been?
A bit of a mix of outrage and uproar.
Yeah, that was good. What is it? Yeah, uproar, outrage, however you want to put it. it would have been. I can't believe he's done this. So it was a very brave decision, and full credit to him for that. But in terms of the cautious thing, I think he's still. I don't think there's any. Just he's still, and I'm sure we'll see it in the final. He's cautious over anything really.
Yeah, still, I guess, quite a cautious manager. But yeah, credit to him for that substitution. We'll talk about Kane a little bit now. So Kane had just 3 touches in the opposition box, one of which was the penalty. Do we think that Kane should start in the final? Because certainly, I think from most people's perspective, Watkins, obviously with his goal, offered more in this most recent game against Switzerland. Tony seemed to be an improvement over Kane with his sort of aerial prowess, and obviously that ice cold penalty scored in the shootout. Do you think Harry Kane is suited to this side? And do you think he should play on Saturday from the start?
Well, first of all, I'd be disappointed if he played on Saturday. It'd be very early. I think, generally speaking, it's one of those where we've got to look at Kane with a little bit of perspective, in the sense that I think we'd all agree he's not had his best tournament by a very long way. He's not looked like his usual self, if you want to put it like that. And I saw one of the comments going through that he's possibly carrying an injury, which I wouldn't be surprised. He's looked like that for a lot of the tournament. And I've said all of that, and I've said that he's not performing at his best, and he's still up there for the Golden Boot of the tournament. And that's kind of Harry Kane in a nutshell. That he's inconspicuous. He doesn't feel like he's offering much, and suddenly you realise he scored the goals that are crucial to get us to where we want to be. It's a strange one. I mean, for me, particularly with what I've said for the previous point and what I was thinking yesterday, I don't necessarily think he's the best for this system. In an ideal world, I would start Ivan Toney, because I think he offers everything this system needs a lot more than Harry Kane does. But with Southgate as he is, as cautious, I wouldn't blame him, frankly, for starting Kane, particularly in a Euros final, because of what we know he can offer. And if we go through another 90 minutes where it doesn't look like Harry Kane's doing much, but at the same time he scores the winning goal, I'm not going to argue. So, yeah, I don't think this system suits him well. I don't think he'd be my choice, but I think he will play, and it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if he delivered when we needed him the most, because he's got a track record of doing it even when he doesn't look at his best. I start Toney. I don't think Southgate will, and I trust him at this point.
I pretty much agree with every word of that. Finn.
Nice.
Yeah, probably basically it's the same. There's no way he's not starting Kane. The thing I would say about Harry Kane is, I absolutely agree with the arguments that this system doesn't work, but I don't see how the system is stopping Harry Kane from getting into the box when Bukayo Saka has literally got past the right back and is about to cut it back, and he's on the right. There's literally a screenshot last night about the 30th minute. Saka gets down the wing, he cuts it back, and there's like nobody in the box because Harry Kane is stood on the right hand corner of it, just out of it, like not even in D, like literally where Phil Foden or Cole Palmer would occupy some space. What his job is to be a penalty box striker, and I know that it's almost like his game has always been based more around dropping deep than sort of being a pure penalty box striker, and I get why he wouldn't want to stray away from what worked so well for him. But it's almost like his mobility has worsened in this tournament, whether he's carrying an injury or not. Famously, players don't like to admit whether they're injured, particularly in tournament football. But like, it's more than a system problem for Kane. He needs to look. certainly Southgate needs maybe they are having these discussions, but either one of Southgate or Kane needs to look at themselves and tell the other one what they can and can't do, because if
I think at the moment it kind of seems like they're trying to play to a version of Harry Kane that doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah, it either doesn't exist. Like, this is the thing: is he genuinely like quite declining quite fast, or is he injured? It's either one of those things, because
Or just very fatigued, I guess, after a long season.
that could be another thing. But
or
yeah,
maybe that he's just losing his mobility and they're trying to play to a version of Harry Kane that was more mobile. I mean, I know he's never been the quickest, but
yeah. But in the same way, in terms of the more mobile Harry Kane, I get that, but I don't know why he's taking up some of the positions that it is. That's not nothing to do with mobility. Like, because you can stand in the box, you know?
yeah,
You
I
don't
mean, I
have to
suppose
stand outside it.
players like Filippo Inzaghi would stand in the box and he can still score goals running off the shoulder well into his 30s.
Yeah.
It's
And weirdly, Harry Kane will
the
still get a
ability
chance
to-
in the box every game, won't he? He's still, there's been 2 goals at least in this tournament where he just popped up in the box. So we know he can do that. But sometimes, especially in the last couple of games, Saka has been so good at beating players and getting past them and like putting good balls into the box, not like rubbish ones. There's just no one to pick it up. But look, Harry Kane's got basically an opportunity to win the first trophy of his career on Sunday, and probably his most significant ever one, to be honest. Unless we win the World Cup, because he's England's captain, he's the record goal scorer. For him, that would be like, I think, the best, really.
Yeah, I agree with that, but it's hard to know whether you can take the lad out of Tottenham while also taking Tottenham out of the lad.
Yeah,
as Marcus said, maybe he's just jinxed and we'll never win a trophy ever. Another sort of question I think about selection going into the tournament or going into the game with the Netherlands, was Kieran Trippier. I know that he's criticized a lot for not really offering a lot of width as a right-footed left back. We saw Luke Shaw come on against Switzerland, and there was some speculation that he'd start in this game. Although there was the contention that fitness was the issue, and I think that was certainly going from the rumours coming out of the England camp. That was why Southgate didn't start Luke Shaw. But he came off the bench at half time and he looked like he could have been playing 75 minutes if Ollie Watkins didn't obviously score that very late goal. So would you think that if Shaw was fit to play 75 minutes against the Netherlands, he'd be fit from the start and should start on Sunday in the final?
Yes is the easy answer. We've had this discussion before of how Trippier has looked absolutely fine defensively, but going forward has not been good enough. And I think yesterday was a prime example of it. It's a moment where I think we'll possibly all remember one that sticks out of me, where Saka won the ball off Gakpo on his flank, started cutting inside, and just needed an option to spread the play and keep us on the attack. And it felt like that move lasted about 5 seconds, and it took 4 seconds for Trippier to realise, oh, that should be me. I should be getting forward here. He's clearly not natural on that left hand side. We've got 6 games, or let's call it 5.5 games, of evidence that that's just not his position. He's not the worst footballer that we've taken to Euros, but in this system, he's stuck out badly for how he just doesn't fit it at all. he's not a left-sided player. That's just simple enough. And if Shaw is fit, like you say, stand for. And I had similar thoughts yesterday that when he came on at half-time, well, he could end up playing 75 minutes here. And if he can play 75 minutes in that sort of game, and we're going into the most important game, it would seem silly not to start him, particularly because we know what he can offer. One, in finals, which is always a nice start. But two, in the main, the fact that he provides us that balance that we've been sorely lacking, to be honest, for weeks. Trippier, it's a situation where I don't want to criticise him too much because he's obviously got his defensive abilities, but he's not a left back and he's not a left wing back. So if Shaw is fit, which presumably he is, for me, it's a no-brainer that he starts on Sunday.
Finn, do you think Shaw should start?
I think it's going to be the most important decision of the whole tournament. Honestly, if Shaw starts or not, I can't do another 45 minutes of Kieran Trippier. He just
could be more.
Yeah, it's just like he couldn't even like. There's one thing not being attackingly like proficient, but it's another thing not even looking across the line and being caught offside about 2 times in a row just because it's like it's basic.
It's quite amateurish, really.
Yeah, it's not good enough. It's not good enough, and I know that he's been one of Southgate's trusted servants, and he's been very, very good for England for a number of years. I mean, he set up Luke Shaw in the final. Funnily enough, for the goal, he scored a free kick against Croatia in the semi-final. Even last night, he had one very, very, very good ball into the box, which could have quite easily ended up in an assist from a free kick. I'll tell you what, in that first half, we talked about how much Phil Foden has flattered to deceive in this tournament. But it was a good job that he was on it in the first half, because if he wasn't, we had absolutely nothing down that left-hand side. And yes, Luke Shaw might not be 100% fit, and yes, it's England probably. I would say that this game is probably even bigger than it was 3 years ago because of the redemption element of it, and now we've got a lot more players that are more seasoned to sort of winning things.
I absolutely agree with that. I think the squad is better than it was 3 years ago.
Yeah, 100%.
I think it's quite easy to think generally.
Who was Kane coming off for 3 years ago? Tammy Abraham, like. No
yeah,
offense
I think it's
to
quite
Abraham,
easy to think generally that this is a young team, and you'll have another chance. But chances in international tournaments don't come that often. I mean, just look at Belgium.
How many sides have got to successive finals?
Very few.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a sliding doors moment, really. And it's obviously, you kind of got to take these opportunities because, as sort of pessimistic as it sounds, you might never get another opportunity like that again.
Yeah.
And reaching a final of a tournament is a lot to do with luck.
As we've seen this tournament, yeah.
As much as it is skill. So it's an opportunity they've got to take. And it's a really good side that might never get this chance again.
So on Shaw, I think, yes, it's a risk. It's going to be the biggest game of many of these players' careers. And he hasn't played that much this season. However, Southgate took a hell of a risk knowing that he might not play a lot in the tournament anyway. So I don't see how that's really much more of a risk than starting him in the final, And I think he just not only gives us an option on that left side, like by making overlapping runs, he's actually got quality on his left foot, which we haven't got in the squad because we haven't even got a left-footed centre back. So we need him. He's going to be the difference on Saturday, I think, in terms of how cohesive we are or not. And I think we can take Spain are an excellent side. They've been excellent the whole tournament. If England play to their potential on Sunday, they win. Because, in my opinion,
That's quite bold.
if they give us, but if I've said this the whole tournament, like we've got through the tournament, yes, by luck, because we've got players of moments. We haven't given better than, well, you could maybe give yesterday's performance a 7 out of 10, but I think that would be pushing it. It's probably more of a 6.5 out of 10. If that's our best performance of the tournament and we've managed to get to the final, like I think there's plenty of variables and things, but I honestly think if we play, nothing's going to be flawless in the final, but if we play a sort of 8 out of 10 game, we've got a very, very good chance of winning the game. And that's all we have to look at it now, a one-off game. So to be honest, Luke Shaw's a footballer. He's played a lot. I mean, we forget that, yes, he's been injured a lot, but we forget that he's still only 29 because he's been around for so long. I think I'd be surprised if Luke Shaw was not absolutely busting a gut to play this game, and I would start him on Sunday.
Fair enough. I certainly see where you're coming from, although I think the saying key to the team, do you agree with that, Adam? And that's going to be the difference, Luke Shaw?
Well, I mean, whether it's the difference, I guess, will depend on how the game goes. But I think that what is key to our team, and it has been key for the last few weeks, is having that balance. Shaw offers that. Nobody else does.
Yeah.
And I know we've had that conversation. I still agree with a lot of what's been said before, that not taking another left back or not taking another left-footed defender was a huge error, and we're very lucky that's not cost us. But hey, here we are. I think, will he be key to us? Yes. Will he be the difference? I guess we'll find out. But as I said, I'd absolutely start him. And frankly, at this point, I'd be very surprised if he didn't. If he can play for a maximum of 75 minutes, as we said, in this game, because Southgate must have been prepared for that, then yeah, to then not start him in the final would be interesting, let's say.
Fair enough. Let's just talk a little bit about Spain before we wrap up. So, Spain, I think, by general consensus, have been the most impressive team in the tournament, and also had quite a tricky run to get here, certainly compared to England. A second round game against Georgia, maybe a little bit of an exception, which they won 4-1, but victories against the host Germany and France mean that I think they've impressed a lot of teams, a lot of people, with how they've played over the course of this tournament and look very good value for getting to the final. Been based around an excellent midfield, a sort of double pivot in deep midfield with Rodri of Manchester City and Fabian Ruiz, with Dani Olmo a bit further forward. A lot of quality in attack. Nico Williams, not the Nottingham Forest one, but the Athletic Bilbao one.
I wish Wales had a player like Nico Williams, by the way.
You're revealing yourself as a closet Welshman there, Finn.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
And the 16-year-old, the biggest 16-year-old sporting sensation since Luke Littler of the Ali Pali, Lamine Yamal.
Is he actually 16, by the way?
He is 16, yeah. Can you believe it? But I think there's a bit of a sense that maybe the defence is shaky and can be got at. So I think all the teams that have played Spain in the knockout stages, including Georgia, have had a little bit of success going at Spain. What do we think is going to happen? Do we think that Spain are going to continue their sort of midfield and attacking dominance and end up winning? Or do we think that England are yet again going to find a moment from a great player and spoil Spain's party?
I mean,
it's quite hard to predict.
It is. It's something I've said for the last couple of games that I don't think England go into the game as favourites. I think the way that we've seen Spain play and the way that they've got here winning every game. Okay, not always in 90 minutes, but they've been the outstanding side in the tournament, much as Italy were 3 years ago, and we saw what happened then. My feelings on this are that it reminds me a lot of the Croatia semi-final of 2018, where we look at it and think, who's got the better players? England probably do. But you look in that midfield area where Croatia had Modric, Brozovic, Kovacic, Spain have those players who I think could, if not dominate, then at least get on top in the game. And their attack, as we've seen, is enough to take advantage of that. So, yeah, I do think Spain start as favourites, albeit narrow favourites. But this would be my favourite ever time to be proved wrong. And as I've just mentioned, I thought Switzerland started as favourite, and I thought the Dutch started as favourites as well. So what do I know? Yeah, my instinct is that Spain have the better of the game. Whether that converts into Spain winning the game, I guess that's the big question.
So we kind of talked, haven't we, about Spain's midfield, and certainly their sort of extreme quality in possession. So obviously we know Rodri sort of in that Pep Guardiola system, kind of learning, very good player on the ball. Fabian Ruiz been really impressive. Dani Olmo also. Do we think that, Finn, this sort of question for you, do you think that England should go back to that sort of box midfield, as it's been called, with the Mainu and Rice a bit deeper, and then Bellingham and Foden further up? Just sort of stick an extra man in midfield, because maybe England don't have the quality possession that Spain have.
Yeah, I think there's a case to say that. I think I talked about Shaw being the key player in terms of how the balance of the team functions. I think even though Kobbie Mainoo's only 19, he's already played against Rodri in particular a lot. And in that FA Cup final that Man City and Man United played, one of the rare Premier League-based games I have watched this season, he was absolutely excellent. And despite the deficiencies in Man United's midfield, I didn't think they looked overpowered by Man City that day at all. So I think, yeah, it's a good point about the system. I think we absolutely have a chance to deal with Spain's midfield, but the system needs to be correct. And I certainly I don't think, go with this turgid 4-2-3-1 that we've been playing for the tournament. But I can also see Southgate thinking that, well, it's worked, we're in the final, so let's play it and maybe react as he usually does to situations.
Adam, do you agree that Kobbie Mainoo, maybe with his sort of superior quality on the ball, will be very important for England?
I absolutely do. Yeah, and I know we've been mentioning, and Finn's kind of touched on it there, how we're saying Luke Shaw could be key to this. I think Mainoo arguably is even more key to how we go about it. If he can be the player that we've seen across the last couple of games, and
he was superb yesterday, by the way. Just like
absolutely. If he can be that player again, and not only nullify the Spanish midfield, but also give us that option of driving forward as well, we're in with a huge chance. Which, as visual viewers will see, has put a smile on my face. But it's obviously easier said than done. But he is going to be vital to this, and if Mainoo delivers, and particularly, if he delivers alongside Rice as well, whatever the midfield setup is, they're both going to have to be on their game. If they are, then yeah, we're looking good. But that is going to be absolutely the key area, as in the game that I mentioned previously, in the Croatia game where it didn't come off for us. If we can control the midfield a little better than we did then, it's going to go a long way to getting our attacking players involved and giving them the space. And hey, we know what our attacking players can do. So yeah, Mainu key, Rice particularly key, but all of the midfield key, and hopefully they can do it.
Fingers crossed.
I'd just like to quickly say I'd really, 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 really like, and I know this is putting a lot of pressure on Mainu, but it looks like he can handle it. I mean, he was playing under 19s football at the start of the season, and now he's in the Euros final, so he can do it. I'd really like to see Declan Rice go back to basics, and what I mean by that is I know his touch, this tournament in particular, has been awful, and I do think he's had quite a poor tournament, and I think I'd like him to be a lot more. He's been good at.
Would you consider making a change? So I suppose there's Adam Wharton, who's not played a minute in this tournament. It would be quite bold to bring him in.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think
Rice?
it's not been touched on enough, really, because like even last night he was at fault for the goal. Pretty much, he got pushed.
Yeah.
No, he's been really poor, and I just don't think. I don't think he can afford to do that against Rodri. I think he can actually walk all over him. And maybe I would. I'm not sure. I don't. That'd be very risky. And to be honest, Rice and Mainu as a pair has worked, but I feel like that's more because Mainu has been excellent rather than Rice being like Rice has been below par and Mainu's been above par. So together they've kind of made a decent partnership.
But below par, not in a golfing sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, I sort of agree with you that certainly from my perspective, Rice has been carried a little bit by Mainu this tournament, but I think it would be a massive risk to put someone like Wharton in instead of Rice.
I mean, it wouldn't be without precedent, I guess. I look back to Germany 2014. Did they start Kramer in the final when he hadn't played much during the tournament? And as I recall, and I may be completely wrong, I'm a number of Dortmund beers down, but he got injured in the end and just ended up going without it. So it's not without precedent that you can change the midfield in the final. Of course, it gives that element of surprise that they would have planned for Declan Rice playing, and we could throw a bit of a curveball there. I mean, I say all of that. It's not a change I'd make, to be clear. I'd absolutely start Rice and Mainu as they have been. But it's not impossible that we'll see some surprise changes, and I wouldn't necessarily be against them either, even though it wouldn't be my first choice.
Yeah, just looked it up, and you were right. Christoph Kramer came in, but was subbed off with a head injury after 32 minutes. So that's good knowledge, and I salute you, even if you are a few beers down.
It's brought the best out of me, obviously.
Anyway, let's get a few predictions in officially on the record before we let Adam go off to have a few more beers and sample some more of the delights of Dortmund, which I've heard is not the most touristy place in the world. But anyway.
It's not, but I don't care at this point.
Quite industrial, I've heard. Anyway, Adam, let's get your prediction for Sunday, not Saturday.
Yeah, so as I've said, my instinct is that we won't have the best of the game. I can kind of see it being similar to Spain's game with Italy, where they don't necessarily destroy them or break them down very quickly, but they will. And my initial thought is 1-0 Spain. Again, take that how you like. Is it my natural pessimism? Is it the fact that in the last two games I've also predicted we'll lose and we haven't? I don't know. I mean, I think it's very clear would like it to go the other way. But that's my thought at the minute. 1-0 Spain is my prediction. I think they will have the best of the game. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll win the game because of the players we have. But That's the way I'm leaning at present.
Natural pessimism takes over, but you've been wrong twice before, so maybe you'll be wrong again.
Exactly.
Finn, what's your prediction for Sunday?
Well, I think as most football games are, even Plymouth Argyle playing in the championships, most of football is about key battles. Players against players and players getting better. You can talk about tactics all day, but if Jaden Philogene had a great game against Joe Edwards on the final day of the season, that could have greatly affected the impact of what the final score was. And I think
we've certainly seen that this tournament, that often individual quality does matter a lot more than tactics. I think otherwise England probably wouldn't be here.
For sure. So I think it's going to be an element of key battles. I think this game could go very wrong, but I also think it could go very right in the sense of we've got the advantage of being here before and knowing what losing feels like. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of players that we've grown into the tournament. We feel like we can bounce back from setbacks. We didn't. The most encouraging thing for me from last night of all the things is that we absolutely didn't panic when we went 1-0 down with 5 minutes played. I mean, that could have quite easily collapsed, but we were very much like calmed down, and then we dominated the rest of the game. So I think it's going to be very tight. I think it's going to be 1-0 England.
Nice to see some optimism.
And I just sincerely hope I can't do another final loss, to be honest with you. Well, I can deal with it, but I just really don't want to go through that again.
That's good that we won't have to be calling up the Samaritans or anything. The way I see it, I think it could. I sort of agree. I think it could go one of two ways. I think if Spain turn up and England players they have for most of the tournament, I think it will be sort of 2-0 by half time and Spain will win comfortably. I think if it's tight, I think this England team have got a lot of bottle. I think they're good at taking penalties. So my prediction, and that's what I think will happen, I think it'll be a 1-1 draw and England will win on penalties. And that would be some catharsis, really.
You might say about the Samaritans, but if it goes to penalties, I'm not even sure I'll be here to see it, to be honest.
Don't say that. Yeah, but I think if it goes to penalties, we'll win. I think we're well prepared for it. I think we've got a lot of good penalty takers. And yeah, I think that it's time. What a time to bury the hatchet when it comes to penalty shootouts.
Just very quickly, if Cole Palmer comes on in the final, can somebody tell him he can take the ball into the corner if we're winning?
Yeah.
It's like even yesterday, like with 30 seconds to go, he like flicked it on, and it's like just take it down and try and win a foul. I won't repeat what I said, but it was some words to the effect, "What the hell are you doing, you idiot?"
But with a bit more less
just
PG language.
Literally shouted at the TV like, "What are you?"
Yeah, I won't repeat what I said either, but there's plenty of Dutchmen around me who could.
I love your. I love his positivity and everything, and I love sort of the freedom he plays the game with. But it almost feels like he hasn't been told how to manage games yet.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes I think this sort of fearlessness and maybe the lack of sort of deep thinking in Cole Palmer's style of play works to his benefit, and I think sometimes it doesn't. I think that was the time that it didn't. Anyway, Adam, we'll let you get back to having your beers and enjoying Dortmund.
Very much.
So, this has been the Argyle Life podcast, the Green and White podcast brought to you by Argyle Life. I've been Stan George. I've been joined by Adam. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, and goodbye.
And I've also been joined by Finn. See you later, Finn.
Cheers.
as the video viewers can see, he seems to be sort of receding into the darkness currently.
Yeah, I know. I was sort of stuck in between the decision of turning my light on, but then it just being a sudden yeah. So
you'll be able to turn your light on in about 30 seconds because we'll be off. But I thank everybody for watching and listening. I can see 500, just over 500 live viewers, which is pretty good. And obviously, I'm sure we'll have loads more on all the usual podcast platforms. But until Monday, thank you for listening and goodbye.
Come on, England.